Yeah.
I thought the people that were some of my mates that were going to hit the 1 o'clock mark were
4:30.
were tough, but 4:30 is like another. May as well just stay up.
I think we're live. Hey everyone.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
There's like no transition from the green room to here at all.
We probably came in mid-conversation.
Hey Danny.
So we're live.
Yeah, we're
cool.
live.
Nice. Well, hello everyone.
Cool.
How do we see who's live?
Yeah, I can't see it actually.
Can you see the people? Maybe only I can because I'm the host.
Have all the power.
Well, confirmed. There is no transition. We are just here.
We're in.
Cool.
Looks like it.
Now we're not gonna make the "you are muted" jokes. It's too classic.
We'll just wait a few more minutes and let a few more people roll in. Talk amongst yourselves. Be good to hear where people are though in the world. I want to know if people are locked down or in the free territories.
Yeah, things be changing. Queensland's locked themselves up.
Are you actually in lockdown, Tim? Sorry, call you at a bad time.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm in Geelong.
Yeah. So yeah, just outside of it.
Outside, yeah. Excuse me.
Shame.
I'm like, it's Wyndham and then Geelong, and we're free. But Wyndham's the worst area, so we don't let them in.
Wow, we've got people from Toronto,
cool.
From Netherlands. Amazing.
Kenya, decent.
Wow. Welcome.
Yeah, I think you might be right, Dirk. First lockdown? I thought you were allowed to be you're allowed to go out and about. Don't they have no more COVID in Western Australia? Oh, hey Jonas. He was in the Q&A, I think. India. We've got to stop calling these things Notion Australia, Lennon. Notion Global.
That's going to be even more confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hi, Melissa.
Hey.
Yeah, things are changing in Sydney as well. So slowly, but yeah.
As in getting more locked down again.
Yeah, like it's I think things are slowly going like still a bit away from Melbourne, but yeah, there's cases spiking up and yeah.
It's got that vibe again.
A little bit.
Ocean Global from down under.
That's right.
Well, I reckon we might get started. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. I'll just share this screen.
I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah, sure.
Right. How are we going?
I reckon we can go bigger, Tim.
Oh yeah, it's small again.
Yeah, I think it resets it.
Oh, it's so big on my screen I can't see it. Sorry everyone, I might just reload it. How's that? It's not getting bigger, eh?
Wanna maybe try again?
Yeah.
Yes, Brandon, the session is going to be recorded, and all of the other sessions we're gonna do follow up after this will be recorded as well, as long as they're on Crowdcast. And I think we've had people staying 4 a.m. in their time zone. We really appreciate you. If you do want to go to sleep, please go.
It'll be recorded. Okay.
Nice.
That's better, hey?
That's better.
Cool. Great. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks very much for coming, and lovely to have you here in Australia with us. My name's Tim, and I'm hosting, and Lennon and Richard are going to speak to us soon. I just thought I'd give you a quick rundown and a quick welcome. I want to first acknowledge that I'm hosting from Wadawurrung country, which for those of you in faraway parts of the world that might not have heard that before, that's the Aboriginal name for the area of Geelong where I live, which is just outside of Melbourne. And I want to pay my respects to their elders past, present and future. I also just really wanted to acknowledge what's going on in the world at the moment, the pandemic, a whole bunch of other movements and challenges being faced all around the world. Some we're all really familiar with and others probably not so, but still having a big impact on people's lives. And just that there's heaps going on for us all at the moment. You know, we are here to support each other, not just the Notion community, but globally. And we feel like we have an opportunity to empower each other and develop a shared resilience and work creatively. So it's great to be together in this time, and hopefully this can be a part of that resilience and sharing and caring for one another. A little bit of housekeeping. You've obviously got the chat. Be great to see people contributing that way. Say something nice to each other. It's great to hear where people are from and what's going on. Down the bottom, at the moment, there's a sign up to our upcoming Q&A, but towards the end of the session, I'll switch that and it'll be a link to a whole bunch of takeaway links from today's session. If you haven't used Crowdcast before, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Ask a Question. Use that if you would like to ask questions of the speakers. I'll kind of keep tabs on it, and we're going to have a Q&A bit at the end of each of their presentations, so we'll engage with your questions there. It's okay if you need to disappear for a bit, toilet break or a phone call, it's totally fine. It is recorded, so you'll be able to come back and watch it here at the same link. I'll post some polls throughout. Be great if you could give us some feedback. We'd really appreciate that. This is our agenda. So you can see we are in the start phase. Richard's going to speak first, and we'll do a Q&A from him. Then Lennon and some more Q&A and wrap up. We'll just see how we go for time, but yeah, we certainly won't go beyond 8 o'clock. What should you expect? We're in good hands. Richard and Lennon are both experienced designers and Notion users, so they're going to give us a lot of guidance and inspiration and insight tonight. Everything's going to be about Notion and about design, and it's very likely that you'll hear some jargon, but don't worry, you're in good company. All the design jargon will go over my head. And so, yeah, please use the Ask a Question if you feel like something doesn't quite make sense. It's probably not just you. There'll be others wondering too. And just to say too, if you're newer to Notion, this is going to be an opportunity to learn about how powerful Notion can be and what kinds of things that's possible. It doesn't mean you have to start there. Kind of the goal for us is to inspire and encourage people and push people's learning a little bit. Yeah, and make sure you ask your questions. Just a little bit about Notion Australia too. Lennon and I have kind of teamed up over the last couple of months to try and put some events together and gather a bit of community and connection across the country and around the world, it seems, of people who are interested in using it and want to learn and want to help each other. We both use it a lot and really love it, and yeah, it's great to be able to share it with other people. We've been putting together a website just to facilitate that, and we'd love it if people wanted to join us. If you want to help, if you just want to chat, feel free to reach out. And just we've also got a Q&A, which is a more informal session in a fortnight. It's actually a fortnight tomorrow. It's on a Thursday night, and you can sign up. There's a link there, and there'll be a link in the takeaway links as well. And that's usually done via Zoom and a bit more kind of chit chat and back and forth and people posing questions and us trying to respond. So thanks again for coming. Really looking forward to hearing from both these guys tonight. And yeah, feel free to pop your questions in there and we might get started. You ready to go, Richard? Almost.
There we go. When you removed share, then the mute button moved. Okay, so let me do something first. Let me know when you can see my screen. And then we'll do a bit of a switcheroo. Can you see stuff?
Can see stuff. Looks good.
Good. So we're good. All right, sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get started then. First of all, I'll start with a bit of a welcome. So hello, everyone, and thank you for dialing in. I do hope you're all staying safe out there. To be completely honest, there are a lot more of you than I initially expected. I guess seeing the activity on Lennon's post, that thing there, was a little stress-inducing. It's appropriate at first. The reaction notifications just sort of kept rolling in, and that really got the anxiety going. I think we're at 140 now, so I was stressed at 70, and guess where I am at 140. So, but yeah, I am glad you could all make it. It is late for a lot of you, so thank you and welcome. So we'll start with this basic one. Who is this guy? Well, first of all, I'm a designer. I'm the user experience lead at PreviousNext, and I mostly run workshops, user tests, and push pixels around, designer stuff. I also love lettering. I haven't been doing it for that long, and I'm just okay, but I do find it really relaxing. So this is what I was doing while I was freaking out about this talk. I am also quite new to Notion. Yeah, Notion to me was basically an Evernote replacement. And for a while. So how I used it was like pretty basic for a long time. So it was only up until pretty recently where I got exposed to what I could actually do. And full disclosure, everything in this presentation I have stolen from this article. Yeah, this article by, I really should have asked how to pronounce her name, so I'm just going to commit to Ines de Verge. I don't know how to pronounce that little E with a roof on it, so I'm going to just go with that. But yeah, so 95% of what I'm going to share has been from this article, so full credit to her. I definitely recommend reading that after this because it goes into a lot of the stuff I'm going to be going over. So we do have a bit to go through, so let's get started. What I'll be showing today or this evening is how I use Notion for usability testing. So I'll be demoing a template which basically helps you organize and facilitate a user testing project. So before using this template, I would basically go to sessions with a clipboard and a printout run sheet thing. And it was nice, but I'm not going back to those days. So today we will mainly be looking at 2 pages. There's this project overview and the usability test worksheet. So the project overview is where I organize the project from participants to scheduling to synthesis, and the worksheet is what I use during an actual test. So we'll go through those 2 things and a few examples of what they look like. One thing I do want to mention before we get into the demo is that I get that Notion can do a lot of different things. And this makes demos especially difficult because it's hard to determine what a safe baseline of assumed knowledge is. So for the sake of simplicity and keeping the demo's structure like somewhat linear, I'm going to assume you're somewhat familiar with Notion. Spoiler alert, the extent of my fanciness is going to be simple relational databases, rollups, and templates. So if you know what those words mean, great. But if you don't, you'll still be fine because I'll explain as much as to know what's going on with whatever I'm doing. But but if something just completely doesn't make sense, just save it for a question or ask it in the chat or something, and we'll try to go over it later or on the fly or something like that. So with that, bear with me while I gracefully switch into demo mode. That's that. Give me 1 second. Okay, and I need to switch some windows. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the project overview. And yeah, like I said, this is basically where I organize and manage the project. So I'll start just going from top to bottom with the sections that are on this page. In the summary, there's nothing really special here. It's just kind of where I put relevant links and notes for easy access. So I usually hide things in a toggle list just so I can kind of keep things out of the way and open them up when I need to. So that's kind of what this thing is here. A bit of lag, but yeah, so when I need to go what's inside, I typically tuck my Xero links in there, the prototype links in there, and usually also like a copy of my test plan here, just so I know from like a glance point of view, I know what the task is, I know what the scenarios are going to be, what things I'm trying to probe for, and I guess if there's a hypothesis that's linked to this test, I'll chuck that in here just for, for planning and just for peace of mind, so I don't need to go back to wherever it's stored. So the participants area is also fairly self-explanatory. It's where you record the details of your confirmed participants. So the first few columns are pretty basic, like from name up to user test. And these ones are also pretty flexible based off the criteria of your tests, basically. So the what do I need to say for this one? No, that's pretty much it. Yeah, the labels and stuff kind of change as you need to. So as for the test date, this is where I record the date as well as the time of each session as they come up. And one thing I do for this area as well is I sort it by the dates ascending, just so all of the people or the participants in this list are like organized by who I'm going to meet next. So that helps me just plan ahead. So the next two columns, yeah, these ones are the special ones. So I'm going to just scrub over and hopefully the feed keeps up with me. Yeah, so these two columns here are these special ones. So if you're not familiar with related databases or rollups, that's what, this is a related database, that's a rollup here. We can maybe go over that at the end because they are pretty powerful stuff for Notion. But for now, all you need to know is that this column allows you to connect this, like a participant, with a test session from this board below. And there's going to be some cool things we can do with that. So if I remove, say, this connection here, you'll see that, give me 1 second, get a bit of lag. If I remove this connection from Marianne over here, it's going to get removed from this card in a moment. Yeah, so now that's not connected to anything. So that's basically what that's doing there. So I'm going to quickly just wire that one back up, just so she is connected to that session. It's a bit laggy when I'm doing the crowdcast thing, but that worked. So yeah, this connection is really helpful for entering something in one place and having it affect several other places without having to like copy and paste multiple times. So for us, it lets us do things like, yeah, this is like a massive screen for me, so I'll just try to see if I can get everything on the one board. But yeah, so for example, it shows the status of the connected session here. So if I was to move Marianne again to post-testing, we can see that that updates the status there automatically rather than having to manage it in two places. So, and also if we were to, I'm going to move her back here again. Also, if I was to change, let's say, change the time for, let's say, Stephen couldn't make it on the 16th of Jan. Which one, Stephen? Stephen is here. And if he could make it next week, that means it changes it everywhere that's going to mention that date. And again, because this is also sorted by the time and date, he moves to the bottom of the list. So I know when my people are, like, who's going to be next up for my sessions. So that's what's going on there. as for the test sessions area where we're on at the moment, so we've already touched on a few things with this board, but this is where the magic happens. So let me just kind of get this into a better view for a sec. Yeah, first of all, this board is used to visually organize the sessions in the project. These session cards as well hold the individual usability tests for each participant. We'll get to that later because that's a pretty big one. But for the most part, this area here helps us organize each session within the project, and you can see what's the status of that test and the project overall, I suppose. So this bottom area here is something I'm still kind of working on. Yeah, it's a work in progress because it works kind of as intended, but it's just really ugly. And I'll kind of explain how I use it. So inside each test, each of these like cards here is a reference to this table. And basically when I'm reviewing my tests and themes within each session starts to emerge, I'll start to pin it with a theme. Like if there's a common theme that a bunch of my participants are bringing up, like tasting notes or doesn't know the taste before they go to shop for something, for example, I start to pin them to this reference to this table. And yeah, by the end of all the sessions, this themes table holds a reference to everyone that had a relevant comment or thing to do with this. And then, yeah, then I've got a good overview of like how valuable this insight of this theme is. The problem is that whenever I create a new session, it duplicates the relationship and these columns. So it kind of starts to look like this. I'm just going to keep scrubbing for the entire thing. And basically it looks shit and my OCD doesn't like it one bit. So it works in theory, but it's just very messy. And I've reached out to Notion, and that's just kind of something that happens when you do this stuff. So that's the project overview and kind of part one done. And we're going to get into the part two bit in a moment. But before we kind of make that hard switch, does anyone have any questions that I should answer for here? Or should I just kind of keep going ahead? I'm just going to do a quick scrub. I think we're okay. So we'll go into this, the part two aspect of it, and I will set a little bit of context. Let's go back to here. So we'll go back to the test sessions area and we will create a new sheet. So I don't have a great deal of screen space because I've zoomed in so much, but in this example, Evan here doesn't have a session attached to him. So we're going to go through the process of attaching a session to a person. So the quick way to do this is from this drop down. So there's a drop down next to the new button here. And I'll click on that and this little drop down appears. So when I click on this template that I've already created, a new document's going to be created based off this template. So I want to actually do this a slower way so we can see what's going on behind the scenes. But yeah, also, by the way, from this drop down, you can do things like create a template, or you can also edit an existing one from this drop down. So that's kind of it's a little bit hidden, but it's, yeah, templates are a huge thing in Notion and they're kind of a complex thing to explain. So I might leave that one till later, perhaps, maybe. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at this blank card here and compare it to the other cards. So first of all, there is no title, so just blankety blank. There's also no participants assigned to it. And then because there's no participant assigned to it, there's no date and time on it as well. Inside the card, there's also yeah, no structure, no template, no anything. So let's change that. So first of all, what I like to do is, let me just scroll down a little bit. I'm going to call this consumer Evan. And then here, we need to hook it up to a participant. So this usability test column on the participants table makes a relationship with this table, with this area, this test sessions table, board rather. And from that, I can connect this card that I've opened to Evan. And just to confirm that's the one we want to do, we want to find the person that doesn't have a session connected. So let's do Evan. And the freebies we get from that, since in the table above, we've got like his scheduled date and all that stuff, that gets populated for free. So there's that. The body of this card thing is also empty, except for a few little things. So basically what this is saying here is, do you want to start with a blank page or do you want to start with a template? We want to start with a template. So what happens when we click on here is, I'll scroll down, this is what's going to happen. So once I connect that up, this is going to populate with my template, which I created in the other step, or from this drop down rather. So now we've got a fully working run sheet for a test. So now let's look at the structure. I'm going to open this up in a full page so we can see everything. I'm going to go through my structure for this. So let me just scroll down here. It's a little bit laggy. Cool. So we've got this quick reference area, and similar to the summary section on the previous page, this is kind of just stuff to keep if you need it. So I forget a lot of things. So in this, in this first section, I have my general notes and checklists and stuff. So, and just tuck them away in a toggle list. So it doesn't take up a lot of room when you're kind of going through these things. But like I have things like a checklist to remind myself of things I need to do, like hitting record. I've forgotten that a few times, sharing the prototype link, even small talk and like having the agenda are good reminders just so you don't kind of go straight into game mode and forget to have a just, ask how the person's day was, or just, small talk stuff. Being nice is good. Yeah, the agenda as well is like, I like to give people like the same amount of context and priming as everyone else. So I kind of have a bit of a boilerplate thing, which I just kind of say each time. And the, yeah, I've also got this instance of the participants table, which is helpful for a few things, just kind of reminding yourself on the fly who you're meeting with, but also, you can make some small talk around some of these things, provided it's kind of appropriate, like stuff that you've captured in there. So that's kind of what I have in the quick reference stuff. All right, session notes is the big one. All right, so it's the main area for the tests, and it's made up of 3 main sections: an introduction, tasks. There's usually 3 of these task table things, but there's only 1 for this. And then there's a closing questions area towards the end. So the introduction area is basically the participant warm-up area. That's kind of what I treat it like anyway. So the questions should be easy to answer. Like sometimes good insights come out of these things, but really the primary purpose of this table, like this intro area, is just to warm them up and get them used to talking. That's kind of what the purpose of this area is for me. As we get to this task area here, yeah, I'll go through my setup, but totally recommend you just doing whatever suits you and your team and your workflows and stuff like that. So usually in my tests, I'll always have like a main task, and then there's always going to be a bunch of related follow-up tasks, which I can ask along the way. Sometimes they're mandatory, sometimes they're not, just depending on the context, but that's what I've got. Yeah, you can probably hear my daughter yelling out, apologies. But yeah, in addition to tasks, I'll also capture insights here on their own row. And I'll explain why that's important as well. But yeah, like I like to capture as many things on one row as possible, just because it makes the synthesis part of the process a lot easier when things are kind of like broken down into their own rows. So as we start to go through the details of each of the tasks, just the columns, I suppose, yeah, the first few columns are quick entry stuff, just to just give you a sense of things. And like where the last ones are kind of like the ones where I spend most of my time. So in the template, I'll mark whether a task is mandatory or not, just so I know that I need to ask this person at least this one, that one, and the other thing. But during the test, like when I'm actually facilitating the test, I also like to mark whether it was something that I asked or whether it's something that the participant naturally found through their own sort of discovery, I suppose. I like that information just on hand, just so I've got a better sense of what happened in the test, just for like synthesis again. Yeah, the task is fairly straightforward, and this is populated in the template as well. So I won't really say too much about that. Let me just scrub across a little bit. The success rate and the time spent are, yeah, they are just the quick success markers. Did they pass? Did they fail? Was it a direct success or an indirect success? And I guess just for context, the difference between the two is like whether they completed the task in a way that we expected or intended, or did they complete the task in a way that still makes sense, but we didn't expect them to go that way. So in either case, I see it as a win, but I like to kind of mark whether they did, which way they went. As we get into the last set of columns, this is where most of the stuff happens for me, especially during the tests. So the summary is where I spend most of my time during the session. So this column here. So this is where I type as a participant is working through the task, I suppose. And I'll write a scrappy summary of what's happening. And if it's easy enough to do on the fly, I'll start to extrapolate the details into the behavior, into the feedback columns, if my notes happen to be clean enough like that. But generally speaking, I'll leave that for the synthesis component. So yeah, for the behavior and the feedback columns, I like to capture what I see the participant do in one column, and also like to capture what they say in a separate one. I'm going to go through a populated example just so you kind of see what this means in context, just as an FYI. But yeah, most of the time I handle these 4 columns, like the last few columns, during synthesis. And yeah, so moving on to the opportunity part of the task structure. Yeah, this is why it helps to have things on their own row, because if the summary and the behavior and the feedback paint a clear picture of the same issue, I guess, the opportunity that comes from that on the same row is kind of all related to the same thing. And then to the same point, so does the theme. So if things are discretely broken up into rows to be relevant, then it kind of just makes sense for things to be on their own row. So the theme one, yeah, so remember the themes table on the previous page, the project overview, that's kind of there. This is where you can populate the theme. It usually comes up, but I don't know why it's not coming up. But yeah, the themes will come here, or I can add my own here, and then it kind of like populates another one on that table. And the reason why that themes table gets so messy with all those columns is because of how many times this kind of gets spat out for Notion to like hook up later on. So that's kind of why it gets so messy. Yeah, closing questions, similarly to the intro section, it's just where, it's just the opposite side where I'm just rounding things off, basically. It's just kind of like tying it off, and like I'll have a few simple questions to ask the participant, thank them for the time, and then just, job done. So that's the overall structure of this worksheet, and we'll go through a populated example now just to see things in context. So we're going to go to Shirley. Shirley's the one that's got all the stuff. Okay. So looking at the introduction, I'm going to just scroll to a good point and scrub across a little bit. Yeah. So the reason I have the opportunity column here as well, it's like if they've said something in my introduction that's like worth following up later, let's say, for example, someone complains about getting too many emails, then an opportunity that comes from that is to speak to the marketing team about how frequently we email people. I know, surely you can't be serious. I like that. I'll pay that. So we'll go to the task area now. And we'll look at the related task, completed purchase one, because I think this is the one that has the most content, demo content in there. So from here, I'm going to scrub across so I can see as much of this task as we can. From here, we can, that's as good as we're going to get. Yeah, first of all, we can see that the participant failed and it took them like a minute to do so, to kind of like throw their hands up and quit. Summary, yeah, it's a brief description of what happened. And yeah, in behavior, I tried to capture the specific steps I saw them take. So I kind of like, when I'm reading it later, I kind of know, oh, okay, I remember that one. She did this and that, and couldn't find something. Yeah, feedback is pretty self-explanatory, where it's like, that's what I heard her say and I wrote it down. And then for the opportunity, because things are captured in this very concise way that everything relates to each other, the opportunity is easier to write without missing anything because it's all part of the same thing. And then the theme is, in this case, related to checkout issues. And if there's a bunch of people that did that had the same problem, then they'll also be pinned to this checkout issues. And then like we can figure out how to consolidate all of those points into a greater theme, I suppose. I think that's everything I had for that one. Yeah, so the last thing I'll touch on here are the insights. So if a participant says something that's interesting but not directly related to the task, I'll often split that out onto its own row, and then pin that with an opportunity if that's appropriate, or just something, or even a theme, something like that. And that's kind of what this will look like. So when I go through here, I've got this grid, which it kind of looks messy when you're seeing it for the first time, but it's like, yeah, I like being able to look at something like this across everyone and then go, okay, I get a sense of what's happened in these sessions. And yeah, that's basically the usability test worksheet and most of what I had to go over today. I didn't really go into what happens during synthesis because I appreciate that's already a lot to go into. So I'm happy to go into it now if we want. Otherwise, we can go into questions or wrap things up like on my end. But that is basically how I use Notion for a usability testing project. Yeah, and this is one of those things that does sound, like if you're new to Notion anyway, it sounds more complicated than it actually is in practice. So if any of that stuff went over your head, but you like the general idea about it, please do reach out or even just read that article that we'll share the link to at the end, the one by Inez, because her Notion template is a lot simpler than mine, and it also has a short article to go with it, so you can just take it at your own pace. But I do hope you found that demo valuable, and if you had any questions, please feel free to reach out. And that is most of what I had to go through, except for I had one last thing. Thanks for swinging by. So, Lennon, you can rip control back from me now, or Tim.
I'll let Tim, you are muted. We got the joke in. We'll let Tim ask a couple of questions.
Far away.
I think.
I shouldn't be muted anymore. Am I still muted?
You good?
I'm good. Okay, good.
I think we can hear you now.
Oh, good. Can you see the questions, Richard?
I can see the chat, but I can't see any questions. Do I need to go somewhere in particular?
Why do you have a number as a name in the test plan and not the task name? Well, close to the start.
Why do I have a number in a where, sorry?
As a name. I think he means it's like the title in the table. in the test plan and not the task name. So
I think it's the first page you show.
The overview?
Yep.
There probably isn't a good reason for it. I think it's just because I've done it that way, to be honest. Just so like there's task 1, task 2, and task 3. Is in here.
maybe, yeah.
This thing? Yeah, there isn't a good reason for it. It's just yeah, if I know that I've got 3 big tasks or 3 main scenarios, yeah, I just kind of typically just identify them as like, is that task 1, 2, or 3? If that's what he was talking about or she was talking about.
Yeah, I think it was. And that table's not linked to anything else, is it?
No. Yeah, like in the toggle list, it's typically nothing that is super wired up. So yeah, like I think the only bits that get a bit fancy are just the participants table and the test sessions board. But yeah, like even as far as Notion complexity goes, this is pretty tame. But it's kind of like when you're speaking to people that I'm not really sure how experienced they are. Related databases is kind of already one that's like, oh, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah. And I did say in the chat to people that if relational databases and roll-ups are not something you've encountered before or seem a little bit much, in our Q&A in a couple of weeks, we're going to spend a bit of time just going through and building them and giving you kind of a step-by-step approach. So
Yeah,
because it's super useful. But I don't think you have to make your setups, super complicated. Like what's great about these, especially sessions like this, is you get to take, a really specific use case and see how it can be built around that. If you need to use super complex functions, then go for it. But no need to do it just for the sake of it.
Yeah, like the synthesis component of my process is probably the scrappiest part too, where it's literally I make use of my 27-inch screen to have all of the sessions there, see them at once, and on my laptop screen, that's where I'm going, basically just reading everything and just kind of writing them back into the other thing manually, because that's how my brain's wired up.
Yeah, great. We had Sophia ask, what kind of info do you put on the user cards?
The user cards. Are we talking about, I'm guessing the only cards I've used are these ones here. These ones, so inside them?
Maybe.
I'll click on one.
And Danny he asked a sort of a similar question. He said, do you use the pages of the database for much information, or is it just the database view? A couple of times you used, when you had your template, you had a whole bunch of data inside the pages themselves.
Where was that question, sorry?
So it's saying ask a question on the bottom right of your screen.
Maybe because I've got this sharing UI that's in the way. Ah, there it is. Yeah, the share screen thing was in the way of the thing. What kind of info do you put? Do you use the pages of the databases for much information, or is it just the database view?
My guess is Sophia is asking what sort of information to generally collect for participants.
As in on this one, on this page here. My Notion terms are going to, terminology rather, is going to start to show its, I don't really know all the words. Give me 1 second.
I think, Rich, if you click into Aliso Wing, the participants, I think it was just in that page.
Oh, right.
So in the participant, because you linked
summary?
See the relation to the participant up the top?
Up here.
Do you capture any other information with this name?
No, like really all that I'm doing here is just, the only purpose of like linking it to the participant is just to assign it to someone, so I know where they are in the process and just like when they're scheduled for. that's the extent of that relationship.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah, nice. I really like how you are storing, you know, extra information, sort of contextual information, little lists for yourself. And I think that's one of the great strengths of the tool, of being able to customize it exactly how you like to use it.
Yeah.
It allows you, you know, to bring all the little bits and pieces that you might need to be able to do that task with you. You don't have to keep a separate list somewhere else. Hey, don't forget this stuff.
Yeah.
There's not many tools, I think, that sort of lend themselves to be used like that, but Notion's just perfect for it, being able to bring in all the extra resources and context. It's great.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, well, it's kind of a bit of a gotcha, is like templates won't inherit this, like what's in the template if you change it after you create it, if you get what I mean. So it's like if I've created this card for Alicio at the moment and I made a change to the template, that it's not going to trickle down to all of the other stuff I've created.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a gotcha, and it's it can be a little bit annoying if you need to make something that affects everyone.
Yeah, that's right. So the changes to the template are only live for future versions of that template.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is kind of, in some ways, as you would expect. Like if you filled in, say, a form that you made, you wouldn't want the change to the template to change the old version, but
correct. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want it to kind of override anything, but it's like I didn't expect it to do that until I'd already finished my first session.
Yeah, no, I have a similar situation with templates for in law firms' databases, and it'd be nice to be able to tweak something in the template so that all the live files, you know, get this new resource or whatever, and you just have to go and put them all in by hand. Anyway, a couple more questions. Can you see them in there?
I can, yep. So let's see if there's any ones I can just. What is the one feature to convert an Avid Evernote to Notion? I think templates. I don't know if Notion Evernote has those now, but templates and the relational databases probably is my main one. That was kind of the eureka moment for me when I started to use Notion for what it could actually be used for. So being able to kind of create boards on the fly and kind of link them up to certain things. Like I'm using it for a simple client relationships thing. Just so if I'm speaking to my clients about something and I need to kind of like store information about a topic that I want to speak to them about, I can kind of keep things organized based off certain tags and themes and things like that. So it's that's something I'm using it for as well. That doing the same thing in Evernote would be challenging because you wouldn't get I guess the nice links of certain things.
Yeah. I mean, people compare them a little bit, but the Evernote feature set only really relates to one part of the Notion feature set. So like the note-taking bit, obviously. But
and the sharing the links
goes on and does a whole bunch of other things that Evernote's not even trying to do. So
yeah, and like I think that's kind of a good point where it's like the more you use Notion, the more you kind of realize that it isn't really in the same league as Evernote. They're not really trying to do the same thing. Like I used it for the same thing at the start because that's what I thought it was. But then, I've been using it for maybe a year, and only in the past like 3-4 months did I find out that it could do some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah. Nice. All right, how are we going with questions? We're burning our time, which is good.
How do you share your Notion pages with data with non-Notion users? So I don't know if this answers that, but it's like you can share a Notion page to anyone, and they just can open it with a browser. So they don't need Notion to look at it. So that was like the main feature I used at the start because that's what I used a lot in Evernote, that if I need to write a note and share that link, they can open it in a browser, and they don't need to have like, say, Google Docs or anything like that to view it.
Do you want to demo it real quick while you're in there?
Sure. All right. So if I wanted to share this, for example, I could share this by going share share to the web. Oh, probably doesn't work because I'm in this thing here. But if I go to, say, this project page and then go to share, and then here, this link I can just share to anyone, and they can open it in a browser.
Great. It's pretty seamless, really.
Yeah. So it'd just be, if I just went incognito, then it just opens up. So I use that a lot. Yeah, just working with clients and just sending them something like a working file. Yeah, I use this a lot.
A question about dark mode. Definitely dark mode.
See, I'm not that big on dark mode. It's unpopular, an unpopular opinion. But I don't know. Just haven't really come around to it for most things.
No, I only use it for presentations, so you can't see the reflection off my glasses.
Yeah, fair enough.
Does this format work for multiple testing sessions with the same participant?
Oh, yes, it does. And I actually think in Nessa's version, the template she built was meant more for that than my one is. So definitely recommend reading that article, because I think it's because I do my sessions in a different way, because I work for an agency, and it's kind of more one-offs as opposed to, recurring ones. I think her template suits recurring ones more than mine does. And there's actually more Notion smarts in her version, because I had to rip it apart and almost rebuild it because I needed to understand what was going on. And I broke a bunch of things along the way. So I kind of just started from scratch again, just because I basically needed to know what it was doing. So I knew what I needed.
Yeah, nice. I think that happens a fair bit. If anyone plays with other people's templates, you can just use it. And if you're happy to use it exactly as they want to, then that's sort of fine. But once you want to try and understand it, got to bust it apart a bit.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe last one. Where would you save a draft for a particular project? Something that you want to share with others, but want to keep work in progress for yourself?
Oh, where's that question so I can read it in a bit more detail?
It's the bottom question for me.
I
think, Karishma, if you look on the left-hand side,
in the private?
Yeah, in the private section. So this broken up into a workspace when you've got multiple people in your Notion workspace. So if you've got a workspace where it's just you, you won't have that, and everything's private. But if you've got teammates, there's workspace and there's private. There can also be another one in there called shared, which pops up when you share something with someone else who's in the workspace, but not with everybody, to give you that kind of layered approach. So I found pretty much you can cover all your bases. You can have your own kind of little private space. And even you can have things like dashboards that sit in the in the team workspace. And if you link to things that are in your private bit, only you can see them on your dashboard. So it's pretty smart how those permissions work. Very good. Thanks heaps, Richard. That was great.
No dramas. I hope you found it valuable and got something out of that, everyone. Yeah, so what do I do now? Do I need to kind of...
we just unshare your...
Yeah, how do I do that? Oh, there we go.
Oh, now we're big. Where'd you go?
I think Rich
he booted himself.
accidentally left.
See you, Rich. Get him back in. Very good. Do you want to... here.
Close message.
Run off.
Can you make that window bigger, Tim?
Yours?
Yep, please.
Very
Great.
good. Okay.
Awesome.
I'll leave it to you.
Welcome back, Rich. Cool. I'll get started. I definitely did not prepare animation today. And just to create a bit of contrast to what Rich was doing, Today, I want to focus on showing a variety of use cases. And you can kind of see that in this menu, I've kind of prepared 8 different use cases. Depending on the time, I'll see if I will go through all of them. But my goal today is really to show you a bunch of use cases for inspiration purpose. And we're definitely focused on the variety, it is not a how-to guide. And again, if you get lost, check out the takeaway links at the bottom of the screen. I'll just quickly click onto that. This is what you will see, basically. We have our next Notion Q&A coming up 2 weeks after today on a Thursday. And then you can go to the Zoom link to sign up. All of the links that we kind of shared today, Richard's templates and the Medium article links are all here. These are the links I'm going to share. You might find them useful. And then if you do have questions or you don't know where to go, you can kind of go to these links here. I'll go back. Cool. So let's get started. I thought I won't do slides for myself. I'll just use my portfolio to kind of do my self-introduction to you. And I'll go to that. So I'm Lennon. I am the co-organizer of this event along with Tim. And this is essentially my portfolio that's building Notion. You can see a big statement. I do interaction design. I do illustration, take photos, upload them to Unsplash. And I do very much love Notion. And I'm kind of working on the side with Tim to provide some Notion consultation as well. So if you have any question, direct them to either me or Tim. I have a particular focus on helping designers and design agencies. And all I do on this page is, with this statement, you can start clicking through different sections onto my site. And then, for example, because I do a bunch of different things in interaction design, I spin up a page called Snapshot of My Work. It is a bit to load. And really on this page, I just dump a whole bunch of different things I do as a designer because no one really have time to write case study these days. And then I kind of use this menu at the top to show kind of a variety of my skills. Going back. And then also have similar sections for illustrations. Back to top. And then for photography and kind of the Notion consultation work. I have an extra section, just kind of a brief summary of where I have been. It's kind of just function as a resume on my site. I have indeed actually created a case study just a couple of weeks ago. And then this one got me to my new job, which is starting on Monday. And this one's kind of focusing on a design system. I was trialing to see if Notion is capable of kind of creating a case study here. This one is all about creating a design system, put a bunch of fancy graphs or charts or visuals together, talk about the challenge, the result, the context, the feedback, and then have a nice kind of just menu to direct people to different. For example, if you want to look into templates of this design system, here are some details. So I'll just quickly go back to the top. And really, what I've done is I've actually put it onto my own domain. So this is where you can actually open it through my domain name, lennonzf.me. We can't turn on dark mode, although I very much prefer dark mode, actually. I'm pro dark mode in that debate. But you can see that I put it underneath my own domain name. Also figure out that if you just put like a link to other pages in your Notion workspace, it actually doesn't leave this tab. Originally, it kind of opens new tab if you kind of put different links to that. Now it all kind of just sits within the same tab nicely. And then I've also added Google Analytics, and then I changed the font a little bit using Google Font. You can find all these different information kind of in this Fruition site, which we'll provide a link in the takeaway. So that's a bit about me. What I want to do next is I want to show you some couple of daily uses of how I use Notion as a designer. Let's start with the second use case, which is collect and retrace inspirations. So as designers, we all be bombarded with different links through your Slack channel, through Twitter, designer Twitter. So instead of putting them into bookmarks into the browser, I actually put them into this database here. call it links. I really don't look at the table view at all. What I do is for each of these little links, when I add them to this table, I'll just specify the name, the link, which automatically got captured by the web clipper, which I'm going to show you in a second. All I do is I kind of specify what this link is. So here's a list. Is it a person, a designer, or is it an article, a link, or resources that I find it useful to help me primarily triage them and then put categories into them? I have a full list of category, pretty much just the words that come to me that day. So all I do with this database is I just search. For example, I'm interested in design system. These are every single thing that I've collected with design system. For example, illustration. You get the idea. So Notion kind of have this web clipper. Let's take a look. For example, if we jump onto a Medium article that I want to kind of save this, it's similar. Instead of clicking on this little star in your browser, I click on the Notion icon, which is the web clipper. It just automatically clip the link and the title. And if you're lucky, the page is set up correctly, you actually see the entire page content get migrated into Notion as well, not this page. So I might typically just change the title a little bit. I always just specify this one database, and I just click on Save Page. And then if we jump back to here, you just see this just get automatically live updated here. And then I'll say, okay, this is an article. This is about design system. That's, yeah. And that's really the bookmark. And then I can kind of come back to this page and just find whatever I need that I find useful. I'm just going to delete that because I just have that here. Next one is I also use this on a daily basis to kind of keep track of my side hustles. I have a page in my Notion workspace called Hustle. And this is kind of the page structure. I have a activity calendar on the side. If you know me well, you know I'm an OCD for documenting all of my tasks on a daily basis. I've also tried that with my studio, which failed miserably. On the right-hand side, I'm currently experimenting this knowledge database, which I now find out that I should just merge it with Link. What I do is I read an article or I took a course. I just kind of document them here and then kind of create a little bit of notes underneath each of these. And then in the activity calendar, what I do is after I've kind of finished a task, whether it's kind of related to this meetup or any other things that's outside of my 9 to 5, I'll just create a task to it. For example, I think I've created one for this event. It's prep and prezzo. All I do is it automatically create a date because I'm entering through a calendar view. I connect them through my projects, some processes. So I have this separate database, just record all of the processes I created. For example, we can go into that and look at, these are all of the things I do when we kind of run these events. And then every time I change my process, I just come back to this page and kind of change it. And I can actually see all of the changelog in the updates page. Let's go back. This one. And then I also have a separate people database. So Tim and Richard's kind of in the session with me. I like to kind of keep tab on all of my contacts, and I'll probably add their emails and contact details later. And I just put whatever things here. It might be a screenshot, might be some other things. And if we keep scrolling down, you'll notice that the project is kind of attached with each of the tasks. So here, these are all of the projects that I've been working on. I saw this database by when it has been last updated. For example, the Notion Australia project has been last updated 20 hours ago. I've spent 25.25 hours on the entire meetup. And then some other interesting use case. For example, I start talking to different designers these recent months. So I keep them underneath this Meeting Interesting People database. And if I open them, I can see all of the tasks that are related to them. I can also see them kind of in a calendar view. Who have I been talking to? How long are these chats? And then I can also kind of see them in a list view. So kind of keeping track of your conversation with other designers. And next time, if I'm talking to someone again, I can just trace back to look at what are the notes that I've taken, which I find very helpful. What are other things? This is also my freelance database, basically, because freelance is a task. I'll use this. Where is it? I'll use this as an example. I've spent 18 hours on this freelance project in collaboration with Tim, actually. These are all of the different things. I also put invoices into the system. I can just keep all of the documents that we've created for this project here. I can also see on the activity calendar on what date have I done what. And then I kind of have this extra attribute saying if it is billable, and then based on that, I start to create my invoices based on my hourly rate. And then I can always go back to Notion, just check for this invoice, what are the tasks that's actually going to be put into that. And I can just quickly do a screenshot, send back to Tim saying, I spent this time on these things. That's kind of actually 80% of my time spending on Notion every day. It's either adding more inspirations to that database or just kind of looking at this hustle view, kind of collating all of my things on a daily basis. Can I take a pause? Cool, there's not much questions. Then I want to start talking about some use cases I find it useful for work. So like Richard, I used to work for an agency, jumping into a product business. We work on sort of different projects, stretching from like just various different types, and they're all very different. So for each of the projects, I often came across different use cases for them. I'm going to start with this one. So this use case is about conduct components review and kind of collate a reading list. So this project is called DPC. This is a typical project page I would spin up at work. Every single project I work on, I always find there's a bunch of links that I don't want to store them into the bookmark. I want to store them in a Notion page, so every time I come back, I can look at them. It might be the Xero board link, might be the storybook link, might be a bunch of previous research that my colleague has done that provides insights to me, and all the final delivery links are here. I like to keep use a one-sentence statement to describe the project goal, to always self-remind. This project is about my previous company did this website that we need to extract a bunch of components outside of it and redevelop them into a new inventory. And my job on this project is really just to review these new components to see how they are doing. So throughout the process, I started collating this list of process. I check the new components with the current components, look at the best practice. Accessibility was kind of at the core of this project, and then identify the future opportunity. So here are a list of components that I have reviewed, and you can see kind of the date. I'm going to look at the bar chart example. So review date for these components, what is the Xero link, what is the storybook? I'll come back to the readings. So because it's quite an extensive components review, I kind of have this table of contents sitting at the top. Again, Notion helps you to generate that just by kind of typing in / table of content, and then you can just get a table of content here. And as long as you've kind of put table properly into your page, whether it's H1, H2, or H3, it will just automatically collate here. So you'll see on this page, the structure of my review are recommendation at the top, because I'll always refer to them. I want to go to them quickest. But to look at the details, these are the different things I've done. I've done a comparison with the previous components. I look at the edge cases, look at the best practices, and keep tab of all the readings. For example, this is a comparison. On the left-hand side, this was the original components. On the right-hand side, this is the new components. Because we're using storybooks, also test a bunch of different things with JSON. I just put them here in case I need to retrace or recreate this edge cases with the developer. And then keep scrolling down. Sorry, you probably will see a bunch of blur, so not very important. Here, I look at the best practices using Medium's kind of graph as inspiration to see what can we improve. And then finally, at the end of each of these components, I start creating this reading list, because when I look at best cases or I look at accessibility, I actually need to do a bunch of extra readings. So for this bar chart components, I look at these 2 articles here. And every time I have a new article, I just kind of create a new one. And I make a little bit of notes to kind of trace back which bit of this article was very helpful for me. And eventually, I've done like a bunch of review for each of these components. And at the end of this project page, I'll stop here. This is a full reading list for every single components that I've done. And I can just quickly share this database with my colleagues if anyone needs to do a components review again, or they need to do kind of some readings on accessibility. Cool. Great. Next one is a little bit similar. It's also kind of looking at components, but this one is about creating a component inventory. I'm going to scroll to the very bottom first. So context of this template or this page is really the case study I've just shown. For that project, we need to create maybe 50 different components. And then there's always a budget or time limits constraints on project. We can never create all of the components. So kind of creating a list for the clients to know and to prioritize them based on the budget. What can we do? What can we not do? Is very important. So this page is kind of created because of that purpose. I started with specifying a bunch of foundation elements. If you create design system, you'll be familiar with them. There are iconographies like logos, typography, and stuff like that. This database just sits on itself because I have to just absolutely create every single one of these. Things get interesting when we look at a list of components. These are all of the components that I needed or the clients actually wanted for this project. You have a bunch of things from card, because I was doing a map application. There's panels, there are tables, more cards, more navigation items. What we did was we actually set it up a column called complexity, and we kind of sorted this entire list based on how complex this components is. And the context is really, we want to kind of ditch the simple components that with the foundation elements, the client will always know how to create them. But with these complex components, we want to provide as much guidance as possible. And then you can see kind of, I just literally took a screenshot of this entire table in the presentation and just show them what kind of walk through the components from the top to the bottom. And if we don't have time, we might just leave all these low priorities one or low complexity ones till the end. Here is a bunch of templates in the design system. And finally, we have all the different pages that I need to create it as part of the design system as well, the mockup. You'll notice that I started linking pages with templates and components. Each page will have a unique template applied to it. And once we've hooked up all of the templates, we can quickly get a roll-up saying, there are 3 different pages use this template, 2 different pages use this that. And this also helped me to prioritize. I probably need to work on this map view with 6 instances of it first, so I can cover a majority of the pages to start with. And then I got a little bit sloppy with connecting to the components. You can imagine that at the end of the day, if you do it rigidly, you can actually find components relationship with all of these pages. And eventually you can get a tally up with how many times has a specific components being used across different type of pages, templates, or how many components a page does use. Finally, just for my benefit, because I'm working on the design, I just turned the components table into kind of a Kanban. And my process was I will work on it. Once it's been mocked up, I'll just move them here. And after mocked up, I will do a tidy up based on the design system to kind of get nitty-gritty with the pixel or with the symbol. And then once they're done, they're completed. And all the things we decided not to do are parked. And this just really helped me to kind of facilitate my own design tasks based on this whole components inventory. Cool. And I want to share another use cases, which is again similar, but it's for doing QA testing. So again, it's on components. My company has finished a website, and then they are engaging designers to look out all of the design tweaks they need to make on the websites or functionality. Again, I'll scroll to the very bottom. What I did was I get a list of the pages and the components, put a link into it, and then I have a checklist of all the different browsers and their breakpoints I need to test from Microsoft Edge, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and then use this as a base to start creating a list of issues. So let's go top, or I call them findings here. What I do is I just create a new issue or new findings, and then I'll kind of just select, okay, it's related to the filters, and maybe the filter is not working. And then I just document whatever details it is. And then I hand over this entire page to my colleague, to the producer that's on this project. And then they turn it using kind of this board view to start prioritizing them. And they will kind of open it and say, what is the priorities? Who are we going to actually assign to? And my colleague's going to using this board basically to facilitate the bug testing. What else do we got? And finally, I'll quickly just sweep through a couple of more use cases. One is we did this kind of site guide because we create kind of websites in CMS, and our clients might not be familiar with how to use Squarespace for this case. So we literally just created a Squarespace site guide for them. And we just literally make this a public Notion page. I'm just going to walk through the table of contents. So in this page, we explain what are the foundation and intent behind this template, because we'll customize it to fit for their brand. How do you create a new page? How do you add or creating a new section onto the page? How do you make the form works? How do you use a custom domain? Like we would just have a kind of an image on the side and then some text to kind of guide them. And then we would also put all of the useful resources like the help side of Squarespaces, the branding guideline that we've came up for them as reference, all of the images that we found, whether they're free or we need to pay for them, and then the links to the font so they can have everything in one places. And again, I'm just going to quickly scroll through. It's a fairly long document, but it's really simple to kind of just put them together into here. I don't need to worry about kind of the look and feel of the page, apart from specifying the 2-column structure, because we want a more readable space for people to kind of read through the content. Full width is typically a nightmare for kind of put a large chunk of text. And just on the side, because I'm working on that, I also created a launch checklist. It's just something you can quickly spin up. Similar idea to the process I've just showed before. What are the things that you need to pay attention when launching a Squarespace? So next time my colleagues, when they do these things, they can just check out these little checkbox. And that comes to the final use case, which is collaborating and present. I was in this design jam in 2019. I was looking at the Keith Haring mural in Brunswick. Fitzroy, actually, sorry. If you don't know that, in Fitzroy, they have this mural, Keith Haring's mural, and he went to this school, I think it was last century, actually, and then he just bought a bunch of paint bucket and had an art class with the students that was in the school back then, and they just created that. And I think he just did an art show at NGV last year. And it was interesting to kind of go onto this design jam. We were looking at how can we help preserve this wall. So we had a team of, I don't know, maybe 10 people together. We spent a day together in the studio and just working on some strategies. And eventually, I just convinced them to jump into Notion, and everyone just work on a different section. For example, we look at the initiative, look at the customer community experience, look at timing and practicalities. Eventually, just use this page as a presentation tool to go through each of the sections, maybe using the mural as a festival day idea to kind of raise money to protect it, or doing local business. And it's really just a simple page that different people can just jump onto the section and collaborate or contribute to different sections of it. There are tons of other use cases that I won't show today, but you can do like document your project in your work log. You can create a client portal for your design clients. It can contain all the links. It can be presentation, can be deliverables, do design delivery. Essentially, Notion can be turned into Xero and Confluence. You can create web and content prototypes, not only to use Notion for testing the prototypes, but actually use Notion itself to create the prototypes. You can track your social media performance. You can do job hunting. And really, my final thoughts on this is you should really just start doing some experiments and make a mess. And then you eventually start realizing what things can be merged together, how does database work together, and kind of create a workflow that works for you. That's my part. I'll take a pause and take a sip.
Thanks, Lennon. So much cool stuff. I didn't realize how much of a nerd you were. I mean, I had a hunch, but I didn't realize how much documenting. That's really impressive. Yeah. Ethan's mind's blown. We've got a bunch of questions in here.
Great.
But maybe we'll let you take a pause because there was a question that we didn't get to, Richard, that related to your stuff. It was from Brendan, and it was about, he says, with all the information that can be contained in Notion for UT, user testing, which I love the style of, can it be exported into other formats? I'd want this to be shareable into other platforms.
Good question. I don't know, to be honest. Like, the extent of my shareability is just being able to share the link. So in terms of like exporting and going into another tool, if that's what you mean, I'm not really sure.
I think that's what he means. The export options aren't great, and Notion will be the first to put up their hand. Obviously, everybody is probably aware that they're working on an API, and so that sort of thing is going to give us more options in the future. You can export databases as CSVs, and so you can get all the data out, but it's not pretty. Your filters that are on the databases don't make any difference. So if you export like from a table, you just get the whole thing, every property, not filtered in any way. So you can definitely get it out. There you go. And you can spit it out in other formats, probably less useful like HTML and PDF, but it's not super easy yet. Is the answer to that one?
I might jump in and start to answering some of the questions. Can you SEO your Notion public web page? You can, with a very simple option, share to the web. And then there is search engine indexing. Just turn that on. I don't think you can customize. For example, your search term or your open graph. The search term will just be determined by the page name, and then basically the first line of your content. And then, to my knowledge, the open graph or the kind of the metadata image will be either the first image that you chuck into your page or whatever you put into a cover. For example, if you put a cover here, your preview image on any social media will just be this red thing. Oof. Cool. do you add much color in your space? Danny's question, as a designer, I don't actually. And the reason of that is I like to keep everything neat and clean because people need to read or people need to digest information. I only add colors when I need to differentiate things from other things. For example, links, I might add, based on the branding, I might add the color to it. Or if it is necessary, there are too many level of headings onto a page, I might add a little bit of strip underneath H1. But I almost always just use one color if I do use them across the entire page, just as a signifier, unless it's kind of we're dealing with databases and then color coding different tags. That's a different story. Next question. When capturing notes, what is your review process daily and weekly? I'm actually learning that from Tim at the moment. I don't have a process yet. Really, it's ad hoc. I just store them into my Notion database. If I ever need to find something design system related on the day, I just do a search in my space and find all the design system related thing. I should really get them into my, get into this rhythm of constantly review them though. So that's an excellent point. Next question. How did you lock your databases and why? Okay, perfect page. I locked the database because, especially in collaboration mode, you don't want people to change the structure of your database. For example, if I unlock it, I can start changing the name. But if I lock it, I can't change it, nor can I change the order of these columns or even just change the type of it. But you will find it difficult if it is multiple people start to kind of creating tags. If that's necessary, you need to create tags on the go. You can't lock your database. There are a couple of things that you need to pay attention with lock the database. One is, for example, I'll just quickly create an inline database. Ooh, Notion is super slow today. Table inline. That if I ever create an inline database, you can't just lock it here. You have to go open as a page, and then database lock. And then if you come back to that page, then you will find out this has been locked. And if you unlock here, you can quickly relock it. But the trick is the downfall is if you relock it and go into a specific thing, open it. Oh, it works actually. Let's see, do this. And then let's go back. And it will be gone. So you have to do that thing again. I just hope they will actually keep the lock database thing here. But the same thing, the same behavior wouldn't happen if you just create a new page. And in the page itself, you create a database. For example, just created a new page, select table. And because this is the full page, you can always just database lock it here. And then you can unlock it. It's kind of the same behavior there. Cool. Final question. Do we still need Squarespace? Or should we just use Notion? I think what you are touching here is really using Notion as a CMS moving forward. Unfortunately, Notion hasn't opened the API yet. So once they open the API, I'm sure there are loads of people going to start using Notion as a CMS. Or really, I have been start using it as for this purpose, for my portfolio or case study. Really, what you are not able to do at the moment is you can't customize the page as much as you want. You can't rewrite components, how the look and feel of it, which is kind of good in a way, because we designers spend so much time on nitty-gritty stuff. Before you dive into your content, you always focus on what the typography or the color or the branding or the logo we need to use for our own website. Notion really just take everything out. You only have this focus on your content. And I find that very helpful. But if I am, I guess, developers or especially front end, I need to create, my job is to create more interactive components. I would probably not use Notion, but kind of write them in the code. But it's been working great for me. Cool. I think that is it. That's all of the question.
I think there's one more in there from Jonas, who was asking about how we save shared notes from Notion, like the takeaway link page?
I did it manually, not very fancy. And sorry, just reading the question. Clipping the web page doesn't save the entire page.
If you just paste a link to Notion in your Notion space, it'll ask you if you just want to link to the page, which, assuming the person leaves it up, will be fine because you can quickly get to it. Yeah, and they may have allowed you to duplicate it. So if that works, but the clipper, yeah, the clipper's good, but it's not as good as the Evernote one, sadly. And hopefully they keep working on it because it will. Sorry, you're just writing. It will make a big difference if that was bulletproof and just sucked in pages perfectly. I think I'd have the whole internet inside my Notion workspace. Yeah, great. Very good. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, fellas, for sharing. And yeah, thanks, people, for jumping in and asking questions and responding in the poll. Heaps of really good topics, and hope people feel inspired and probably a little bit overwhelmed. It's good that you can watch these things back. I'm going to have to watch your stuff back. There was so much in there. It was great.
I just kind of forgot that I was talking, so I just keep talking.
Nah, it's good. It's good. There's always so much. I think once you start thinking about all the different ways you use it, once you've been going for a while, you realize it takes over your life a little bit. Fantastic. Any final thoughts, Richard, Lennon?
I think it's just if you guys go to the takeaway links, I definitely understand what we've went through, whether it's Rich's content or my content, maybe mine more specifically, that it's a lot to digest, and it's absolutely okay. That's why we kind of want to set up these Q&A session to kind of help you go through bit by bit. And these main events, our goal is to kind of inspire you to see how different people kind of use Notion differently. And you might come up with your cool use cases. And you might do presentation one day to join us. But yeah, check out the takeaway links. All of the links are in there. And let us know if there are any questions.
Fantastic. Also, Danny, who's been asking a bunch of questions and contributing in the comments, he's a Notion Pro from the UK, and he runs a stream, I think, every Sunday. So they're always an epic feast of Notion goodies and heaps of great ideas. So I think Danny runs that, Danny Hatcher, straight out of YouTube. I don't have the link right here, but you'll find him. You'll find him out on the internet. Great. Thanks, everyone. Oh, here we go. Oh, you're on mute, Lennon. Look.
I might not do that right now. I didn't realize I'm still sharing. I just
could have been awkward.
Yeah, great. All right. Everyone.
All right, guys. Cool.
Thanks very much.
Catch you guys. Thanks for dialing in.
See you next time.
See you next time. Thank you, Rich.
Bye.